When my manic episode came to an end, it was devastating coming to terms with the fact that my illness was the reason for my increase in confidence, endless creative flow, and ability to connect deeply with those around me. Falling into that dark space again had an oddly nostalgic feeling. Being back in the grips of despair and numbing aches after just feeling and being a completely different person was extremely confusing. I questioned who I really was. How could I be two completely different people? Which one was really me? My manic episode did become way too intense if I didn't make sure I slept every night, and I had forgotten about how destructive I was at times, but I missed that version of myself. I wanted to be back in the flow of creativity. I wanted my eyes to shine so bright that everyone noticed and was drawn to my presence. But was that even reality? Was I actually being perceived in the way that I thought? Or was it all a delusion? Was I really chosen by the universe? It all felt so real, but I did not know what real even meant anymore. After being sober for 4 years, with minimal dips into depression and finishing my degree, I began working my first position of my career. The amount of pressure and stress I felt, and the imposter syndrome that lasted majority of the 3 years I was at this facility, eventually led to a depressive episode. I had to take time off work to adjust my medication, and I was back in about 4 weeks. Around this time, I had been working on loving and accepting myself, so going back did give me a boost of confidence. But I was also chronically relapsing on alcohol and was struggling to stay sober more than 3 months at a time. I was in denial about how drinking alcohol can reduce the effectiveness of the medications used to manage bipolar disorder and could also trigger an episode, so I didn't think having short bouts of drinking from time to time was hindering my stability. Life was going great until I realized I could not afford my apartment anymore due to the lack of hours I was receiving from my current job, so I had to move into a smaller place. Moving is extremely stressful, and stress is one of the top reasons for bipolar episodes to be triggered. So I knew if I didn't decrease my stress levels, I was at risk of falling into another episode. At the time, I did not have the coping skills I have today to decrease the likelihood of having an episode. My way of de-stressing was to do the bare minimum of activity, which included cooking less, showering less, and I discontinued my writing project I had been working on at the time. I became extremely sedentary in hopes that would stave off an unwanted episode by avoiding much activity. In hindsight, I was mirroring what actually happens when I do fall into an episode. My daughter had been having behavioral issues around this time, and work continued to be a huge stress given the environment I was working in, so it was hard to avoid stress at this time, even if I didn't have to move. After dealing with the stress of moving, I realized that I was feeling pretty good now that I had less financial stress, and I was now 4.5 months sober. I thought I was for sure in the clear of having an episode, but not long after moving, I began noticing those familiar dark spaces. That underlying feeling of a fog that lingers throughout every minute of the day. My entire body feels as if gravity is pulling me down. I can't concentrate or focus, and feel mentally drained even after a night of sleep. At this stage of my life, avoidance was a tactic I used that never ended in success. I continued going to work and trying to live life in hopes the episode would just go away. I didn't want to face the fact that I was falling back into the depths and would have to dig my way out and rebuild my life again. I can't explain how incredibly devastating it is to build your way up from the very bottom of existing. And by this time, I had done it countless times for almost 20 years. It starts to weigh on you, and you eventually just don't have the will to do it anymore. You come to the painful realization that this is going to keep happening, and you just can't bear that hard truth. I eventually told my sister that I was pretty sure I was in a depressive episode and just broke down. After admitting it, it was like I gave myself the permission to just let go and let the episode consume me. This episode was different from the previous depressions I had experienced throughout my life. I think this was the first time I just didn't feel like I could keep up the charade and continue the never-ending cycle of losing myself and picking up the pieces. Each time the cycle happened, I was not put back together the same. I lost pieces over time, and I just couldn't do it anymore. I remember driving one day, and I drove by a gas station, and my brain said, it would be easier to kill yourself if you were drunk. And after being sober for 4.5 months, without any hesitation, I pulled into the parking lot and bought 4 tall bottles of beer and headed home. There was no doubt in my mind that this is what was supposed to happen. The negative thought patterns had taken over far before this incident. My mind told me I was a burden to my friends and family, and my daughter would be better off being raised by anyone other than me. When you are so deep in a depression, your brain is lacking all the chemicals that you need to feel motivated, happy, and experience the pleasures in life. Lacking these things leads to negative thought patterns that feel out of your control and take the seat of yourself. You become convinced that suicide is the only way out. As I was guzzling each bottle, I received a text from my mom asking me if I was alright. Seeing that someone was concerned about me snapped me out of the spell I was under, and I admitted that I wasn't doing well and that I needed to stay with her and my dad because I didn't feel safe being alone. I had experienced suicidal ideation for 2 decades at this point, but it never got to the point of me planning on how I would do it and then making sure I was confident enough by drinking to actually make it happen. From the end of spring 2022 until the summer of 2024, I had struggled with several episodes. One of them including short bursts of mania that was brought on by forgetting to take my medication several times. Drinking played a big part in me having longer episodes, and I eventually quit for good March 21st, 2023, with the help of getting back into the AA program and doing an intensive outpatient program. The last 2 episodes I have had in the last year were much shorter and easier to recover from, since I was now sober and had been in therapy specifically for my bipolar disorder, and new coping skills and strategies to utilize to minimize the severity of the episodes. My most recent depressive episode was brought on by multiple negative family events that happened in a short period of time. These events caused extreme anxiety that not only caused emotional stress, but also extreme physical stress that was difficult to come down from without my anxiety medication that I had not been able to fill for several months. Each stressor at that time was a hard hit to my brain, and I could literally feel a wearing of my brain with every hit. I now have a psychiatrist who will prescribe my anxiety medication in hopes that for future events, I can take one and not be so affected that my stress levels shoot high enough to cause another episode. It has taken me 22 years to get to the point that I am at today with understanding and managing my bipolar disorder. I used to long for a hypomanic episode until I knew how to linger in the present moment. If I ever do feel hypomanic or manic, I increase my antipsychotic and contact my psychiatrist. I used to allow myself to fall fast into a depressive episode by letting myself lay on the couch and shut my mind off completely, which led to being dug deeper into the depths, until I realized I need to do everything I possibly can to keep my mind stimulated, even if that just means sitting up on the couch, going outside once a day, doing a small task every day, and checking these activities off to feel a sense of accomplishment. In my opinion, finding the right combination of medication is step one to having relief from your bipolar disorder. Seeing a therapist that specializes in bipolar disorder is also a crucial part to finding stability. You will learn how to identify your triggers, develop healthy coping skills, and be taught how to see early warning signs of an episode so you can utilize the coping skills you learned to de escalate the episode before you fall completely into it. I know now that I cannot do this on my own, and when I see the warning signs, I contact my doctors and loved ones so I can get the support I need. I honestly don't know where I would be without the support of each of these people, my mom being the number one person. If you don't have anyone you trust, there are multiple online forums and support groups that can be of service to you. www.ibpf.org is a great website you can go to receive support, and there are a number of articles you can read to help you better understand your disorder and not feel so alone. As I mentioned before, I struggled with my identity for many years. Having episodes that turn you into completely different versions of yourself is very confusing. It took me a while to realize this, but it's helpful to understand that medication can create another version of yourself, a more stable self that allows you to achieve your goals and build a life for yourself. I've spent the majority of my life fighting the fact that I am on Earth having a human experience. Becoming a victim to life experiences was something I did not even fully realizing it. Why me was a constant question in my mind. And all along, the answer has always been that life is not happening to you. It's all for you. I truly believe we're all here for a reason, and having to experience life in all its forms is just part of the game. I have spent many moments, unstable and stable, of wanting to just be done with living. Even as a stable human, life is just hard. I don't know why, but I realized in this last depressive episode that I am tired of wanting to die. I am exhausted from the constant ruminating on not wanting to live life as a human. Something just clicked this past depressive episode. It's almost as if, since I was already wanting to be done with life in my stable mind, that when I entered my depressive episode and became suicidal again, the dark energy was neutralized and has allowed me to embody someone that can envision life in a different way. I want to play the game with the perspective of winning, not of wanting to quit because it's just too hard. I want to overcome the inevitable obstacles, not avoid them. I want to embrace the chaos because I know order will soon follow. I want to be in my body and to not constantly try to escape through distraction. I can only hope this realization becomes embedded in my mind, because learning to live now feels easier than yearning to die.